Now joining us, he was to be with us at our world headquarters here in New York this evening. Airplanes. Talk about needing to fix the infrastructure. Nouriel Roubini could not get to us. He comes to us by Skype from Bangor, Maine. Nouriel, good evening to you. So much of what you and I talked about in Davos 5 years ago seems to be coming true. You just keep having your doubters, and you also keep being dead on. Your comments on 850 euros is calculated by the Royal Bank of Scotland. What does it signify the size of the bailout of the Spanish and Italian markets?
Well, the ECB is going to start buying the bonds of Spain and Italy, but they cannot do it for too long because in the case of Greece, we're speaking about 50, 60 billion euros. In the case of Italy and Spain, we're thinking about a market of 2 trillion euros for Italian debt and 1 trillion euros for the Spanish debt. So ECB can be a bridge until the time of the EFSF new rules being approved by the parliaments of Europe so that the EFSF can start buying in the secondary market Spanish and Italian bonds. But even that's not going to be enough. You would need to double or triple the size of the EFSF in order to backstop fully the governments of Italy and Spain. That's not going to occur. The Germans have been clearly saying today that they're not going to do it, because if they do so, effectively they're going to backstop with their own debt and taxes the debt of Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, and everybody else. And that politically is not feasible in the Eurozone.
Let's bring up an op-ed. You'll see this, folks, tonight and tomorrow with the Financial Times. Until last year, policymakers could always produce a new rabbit from their hat to trigger asset reflation and economic recovery. And Dr. Roubini goes on to say, but now we have run out of rabbits. Where's the rabbit, Nouriel? And who needs to find the rabbit? Is it the ECB? Is it the president? Where are we in search of our rabbit?
Well, we're running out of rabbits because every country, including now the US, is going to do fiscal austerity. There'll be a fiscal drag. It's going to worsen growth because we cannot backstop anymore our banks. If anything, the sovereigns are a source of banking risk because they're distressed themselves, and a large fraction of the debt is held by the banks in Europe. And we may be doing a little more of quantitative easing in the US, but not in the UK, not in the Eurozone. But what a difference is going to make QE3, when last year it didn't make much of a difference. And everybody wants to have now a weaker currency to grow their exports. With a weaker currency, but in equilibrium, not all currencies can be weaker. So even that policy tool may lead just to currency wars and not much of an effect.
Right.
So we don't have much policy tools left.
Nouriel, while you were with us here, we were showing some video of our politicians, the fancy suits and the dresses, acting in control in Washington. After what we've seen the last 15 days or so, how in control are the elites? How in control are the institutional leaders trying to solve this crisis?
Well, they're not much in control because there are divisions within countries and across countries. Take the Eurozone. You have to have 17 countries agreeing with each other, and right now it's becoming mission impossible. Different of views between Italy, Spain, Germany, France, and the rest of the Eurozone. So it's becoming increasingly hard to have policy coherence that gives policy credibility, and therefore we're not going to get much of a signaling, in spite of the various communiques of today, that there's going to be any concerted, coordinated policy reaction that ends this crisis. It's going to get much worse in the US and the Eurozone.
Well, when you say it gets much worse in the United States, before we spoke to you, Dr. Roubini, we were talking to Al Hunt in Washington and Matt Dowd about our political forward view, the path to the election. How will economics dovetail into our political debate?
Well, it does, in the sense that at this point, I think the Republicans don't care if the economy is going to get worse, because if it's going to get worse, we're going to have a recession, then Obama is going to be blamed, he's going to lose the presidency. And the two parties are already into gridlock, and they cannot agree on anything. One vetoing expenditure, spending cuts and entitlement reforms. The other one vetoing any tax increase. So there is gridlock, and coming into an election year, the gridlock is going to get worse. The economy is going to turn into a recession at this point. Instead of having a short-term fiscal stimulus, we're going to get a fiscal drag. Risk aversion is going to be higher. Equity market going to correct at the time where already the climate economically was negative. So we're headed towards a double-dip recession.
When you look at this, Nouriel, it does come down, as you just mentioned, to fiscal drag. Ken Rogoff calls it the Great Contraction. We get these kind of phrases. Do you just presume that we have sub 2% GDP for a long time?
Well, at this point, there is a risk that we're going to go into negative economic growth. And it's not just sub 2%, but in the first half of the year was sub 1%. And once you're reaching something between 1 and 2%, you're already at a stall speed. And once you're at the stall speed, either you regain again escape velocity, or like a plane that loses and reaches stall speed, you're going to start having a free fall. Stall speed is not a stable disequilibrium, it's unstable. So either you get out of it, or you're going to end up into a severe recession, if not a depression. And it's not just the US, it's the United Kingdom, it's the Eurozone, it's Japan. Most advanced economies at this point are in trouble.